What is going on, YouTube? It's your boy NevinTheBarber, and in today's YouTube tutorial I'm going to be covering a burst fade with the Combover. So to get straight into this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and use my Cyborg trimmers by Stylecraft to carve in my first bald line. And when doing a burst fade, you guys want to make sure to create a nice circular shape around your client's ear, only so that the fade can burst out in every direction up into your client's apex. So now that I have that bald line set, I'm gonna go ahead and follow up with the 1.5 guard all the way closed. And I'm gonna take this guideline going up about 1.5 inches, followed by clipper over comb. And when doing this, I'm just blending up into the bulk. That way I have a smooth transition into the parietal ridge bone and the occipital bone. And with the lever all the way open on the 1.5 guard, I'm just doing some detail work, flicking out any last dark areas that I see. And now with the 1/2 guard all the way closed, I'm going to take this guideline up, going up about 1 inch. And right after this guideline, I'm going to go ahead and open the lever all the way on the clippers. So I'm now cutting the hair down to a short number 1 guard length. And I'm just going to gradually close my lever as needed to flick out any dark areas that I see. And I would say that this is probably one of the most important parts of the haircut, only because the 1/2 guard really gives a lot of contrast and that blur effect to the fade. So just keep that in mind when you guys are detailing with the 1/2 guard. This is really what's going to bring your fade to life and give it that clean effect, like I said. But just be patient with it and always pay attention to the growth pattern of your client's hair. Sometimes hair will be growing in different directions, and that's when you guys are going to have to angle the clipper, as you can see that I'm doing right here. And you guys can see how that guideline is slowly starting to fade away. And before erasing the last guideline, I always like to line up the C-cups and the vertical bars. And now with no guard lever all the way closed, I'm going to go ahead and start attacking that last guideline. And I'm just going to gradually start opening the lever on the clipper. And you guys want to be very careful with this step, only because you don't want to push the fade too high. But just be patient with it. Like I said, if you guys do all the steps properly, you should get a nice clean transition. And in this case, my client did have some pretty thick hair. And when working with a density like this, you guys are gonna, have to put in a bit more detail work. Some hair textures may not blend out as easy, but like I said, as long as you guys are doing the steps correctly, everything should come out nice and clean. Now I have the lever all the way open, and I'm just flicking out any last dark areas that I see. And you guys can see how the 2 guidelines that I initially put in are now completely faded out. At this point, it's really just a matter of putting in the detail work, but you guys really don't have to make it hard. Cutting hair is honestly just putting in guidelines and knowing how to blend up into the parietal ridge bone and the occipital bone. Once you guys know how to use the guards and you know how to work with certain head shapes, it becomes so much easier. Of course, you're not going to master it overnight, but with more repetition and knowing what you guys are doing with each guard and how to flick out each guideline, that's just going to improve over time. But just be patient with yourselves, especially if you're a beginner. I know it can be frustrating sometimes, at least for me it was. But after you find a system that works for you, it can be really effective on all hair textures. And here I decided to put the 1/2 guard on just to put in a few more details on this haircut. I did notice some dark areas up into the parietal ridge area, and I always like to use my 1/2 guard when I detail, only because, like I mentioned at the start of the video, this is really what's going to give that blurry contrast to the fade. And now that my fade is complete, I just have to line up my client's nape area. In this case, he wanted a V shape, I always ask my client if they want a V-shape or rounded. In most cases, they'll usually ask for the V-shape, which I personally think was better for a burst fade. But always consult your client and ask them just to make sure. And now with my foil shaver, I'm just going up and cleaning up all that stubble that I initially cut down with the trimmers. And it's really just all of these small details that's gonna make your haircut pop at the end of the day. Not only will your client appreciate it, but it will increase your chances of retainment as well. So now that I have the left side complete, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys a different fading system on the right side. So I'm first still gonna put my initial guideline in with my trimmers as the first step. But instead of using the 1.5 guard closed, I'm gonna use no guard with the lever all the way open for my second step. So I'm gonna show you guys how you can blend up going from the skin straight into no guard lever open. So I'm basically gonna be creating 3 guidelines going up into the parietal ridge bone, and then I'm gonna come back down and erase each one. And keep in mind that I am taking up each guideline about 1 inch.
Yeah, bro. It trips me out sometimes when I think about it. I'm like, damn, we've been doing this for over a decade.
So now that I have this step complete, I'm going to go ahead and take the 1.5 guard all the way closed. Again, going up about another inch. And you want to make sure that each guideline is pretty visible. You don't want to make them too compressed either. So that's why I mentioned to give yourself an inch with each guideline. And now just doing some clipper over comb up into the parietal ridge bone and the occipital bone. And now I'm going to start blending back down. So with the half guard all the way open, I'm going to begin blending the 0.5 into the 1.5. And I'm just gradually closing my lever as needed. Sometimes you're going to notice that your guidelines fade out really quick. And then other times you may have to detail a little bit longer and put in extra detail work. Only because, like I mentioned earlier, some of your clients are going to have a thicker hair density. And finally, with no guard lever all the way closed, I'm going to blend out that last guideline. And this is really the only time in the fade where I'm going to be opening up the lever just to do detail work. But just be patient with it. As long as you guys are doing all of these steps correctly, you should get a nice, clean, blurry fade. And if you guys have learned anything in this video so far, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Also, if there's any haircut tutorials that you guys want to see, feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll try my best to get them out for you guys. And right here, I went ahead and put the half guard on one more time just to flick out any last dark areas that I saw. And now that the fade's complete, all I have to do is come back and line up the V shape to make that burst fade pop. And you guys can see how the fade looks nice and blurry. Like I said, it's really just a matter of knowing how to blend into your client's head shape. And one more time, using my Gamma Skin shaver, I'm going to go ahead and bald out any stubble that needs to be cut down to the skin. And if you guys want to save money on any of the clippers I used in this tutorial, feel free to use my discount code NEVIN10 on the Gamma website. I'll be sure to leave it in the description if you guys do want to purchase them. And now to trim up the top, I'm just doing some shear over comb, basically cutting all the hair falling above the parietal ridge bone. That way there's nothing overhanging into the fade. And as simple as that, I was able to blend the top into the side of my client's head. My client did want to keep the length he had on top, so I didn't have to cut any. And as always, I'll go ahead and finish up the haircut doing some shear over comb. And this just basically gives a much more softer finish up into the occipital bone and the parietal ridge bone. Sometimes the clippers can leave more of a choppier look. So this is when I'll come in with my shears just to give it that softer look. But regardless of what haircut I do, I always like to finish off doing shear over comb. But that's just me personally. You know, at the end of the day, there's really no right or wrong way to do this. You guys just have to find a system that works best for you. But you guys can see how the fade is looking nice and blurry with the few simple steps that I showed you guys. But that's pretty much it for today's burst fade haircut tutorial. Once again, if you guys learned anything in the video, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and drop a comment letting me know what you guys want to see next. But it's been your boy Nevin the Barber, and I'm out. I'll see you guys in the next one.